It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. And yes, rookie training camp has begun. The players hit the practice field, although it was inside the field house today because of the rain in North Jersey, for the first time as New York Giants. And I'm sure you guys are going to want to talk about that. You'll also want to talk about Giants Life Part 2, the Jackson Dart story, which went up on the Giants website earlier today. Great insight into, as I said on Twitter, how the Giants found the bullseye for number 25, Jackson Dart, their rookie quarterback out of Ole Miss. Our number is 201-939-4513. You can also go to hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter. And if you're not catching the show live, catch it on the archive on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Of course, we are coming to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. And Matt, I think the first takeaway that I got today, we talked to four of the Giants draft choices, the top four guys. That would be Carter, Dart, Alexander, and Scatterbo. By the way, we didn't ask him if it's Scatterbo or Scatterboo.
I thought we knew it's Scatterboo.
Here's the problem. I went back and I looked at a number of his televised games, and the announcers kept flopping it. They were not consistent in how they called his name.
We'll have to ask him.
So we do need to ask him. And I said to the fans the other day on the show, I would ask him, and I didn't do it today. So
you'll have
my bad.
ample more opportunities.
Yeah, I think so. Probably tomorrow. In any event, the one thing that was very obvious to me, besides some of the details that the guys talked about and some of the questions that they answered, is the maturity, the professionalism, the respect for just people, not just the respect for the game that this collection of rookies has. It is a really good group of guys from what I could tell, just from the interaction that we had with, let's see, Scatterboo and Dart at the Combine. I did not talk to Alexander at the Combine, did not get a chance to see Carter because, remember, he didn't have any media avails because he was injured. So two of the four guys I had already known somewhat from my interaction in Indianapolis. But then all four of these guys today, it's hard not to be impressed by these guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's day one of rookie minicamp. These guys have been members of the team for 2 weeks. So you don't expect them to come in their very first practice in the NFL and, come off as too confident or cocky, you could say.
I will only add one thing to you, though. Over the years,
you have seen that.
I have seen some first impressions that were either too cocky or too passive.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It does happen sometimes, but I guess I wasn't expecting any of them to come in and act like that. And sure enough, none of the guys that spoke today were like that at all. I mean, the thing that stood out to me the most is all four of these guys, including Abdul Carter, who we all know is clearly confident in himself and in his abilities, but these guys sounded so incredibly humble today and just happy to be here, grateful for the opportunity. I mean, especially listening to Darius Alexander and Cam Scatterboo. I mean, they all came off as, again, very just grateful to the Giants for the opportunity, but those two guys in particular, you can tell this was just like an absolute, their dream come true, and this was day one of them, taking the field in an NFL jersey, and you could just see their just genuine excitement and happiness, joy about being here. And again, it's only day one of rookie camp. There's a whole lot of football to be played coming up, but that was a little refreshing to see. The other thing I kind of noticed that was pretty obvious that stood out during Jackson Dart's press conference is, I don't remember the last time the Giants had a quarterback, a starting or potential franchise quarterback that had this sort of personality that he does. And I mean that in that, obviously Daniel Jones, Eli Manning, they're both, they were good captains, good leaders of the team. They had the respect of obviously all of their teammates. But those were, how do I put it? Somewhat soft-spoken. Like Jackson Dart you could tell, has a big personality. And that was just, I guess, a little refreshing to see, especially just after the last couple of years of what we've seen from the quarterback room. Obviously, none of it matters until the games start. And for Jackson, who knows when he will actually get into actual regular season games to have an opportunity to help this team win. But just seeing that personality from the guy who obviously the Giants drafted to hopefully someday be the franchise quarterback for a long time, that was good to see. I not that I didn't expect it, because we obviously had the conference call with him 2 weeks ago. He was here for his introductory press conference. But after his first practice, kind of seeing that the balance of modest and grateful to be here, but also that personality where, like, he's not going to have any issues taking control of a room and getting guys to listen and follow him.
I think the proper phrase for at least these first four guys is that par for the course. We got what we expected.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No surprises, good or bad, out of any of the four guys.
Yeah, no surprises.
No, we got what we expected, and it's all good from what we could tell. Now, in terms of what they did today, and then maybe I'll ask you for a couple of things that stuck out from what they said. What they did today, they went out, they did some individual drills, they did some 7-on-7s, they did the whole usual warm-up with the calisthenics going before they went into that stuff. Jackson Dart did throw some passes and ran some plays in the 7-on-7. None of the other draft choices participated on 7-on-7s. As per Coach Brian Dable, he just thought that it was good to get Jackson some reps, giving him an opportunity to throw the ball, to run some plays, to call some signals. That was the reason why they gave him some of that stuff to work with today. Otherwise, none of the other draft picks did anything more than the warm-ups and the individual drills.
Yeah, but even from, disregarding the 7-on-7 for a second, there were two things that kind of stood out to me just watching those positional drills and the individuals. For one, and this is a undrafted free agent signing, which we can now talk about.
Yes,
because
we can.
They are officially announced.
They are signed. Yes.
At one point, from where I was standing on the sideline, the edge rushers were all right in front of me doing like footwork drills. And Trace Ford, from Oklahoma, he's got some very quick feet and just very, very agile. I'm excited to see him once training camp starts and you can really get, contact, things get a little more physical, and then in the preseason as well. But
he was jacked up.
He just looked so fast out there. Like,
he did.
Even compare, there was one drill where he went right after Abdul Carter, and at least in my eyes, I'm like, he seemed like he was even faster than Abdul out there.
It did look like that. But, of course, he's got a lot more motivation, right?
For sure.
He's not a draft choice.
For sure. 100%. But that was just one thing that stood out at the beginning of practice. And then during some of the positional drills when the quarterbacks were throwing to the wide receivers and tight ends, which, granted, there were no defenders. There was no pressure. There was no pocket. So take this with a grain of salt. But Thomas Fidone is an unreal athlete. He just looked so fast out there. If you told me that he was just a big, tall, fast wide receiver, I would fully believe you. He looked so athletic, and he made a couple of catches. Again, no defenders on him, but completely outstretched, like leaping grabs where I was just like, I can see how this guy was the former number one tight end recruit in a class that included Brock Bowers.
The length on him, I mean, I think they list him at what, 6'5"?
I think so, yeah.
Right? He looks like he's 6'7.5".
Yeah, he stands out.
He really does. He dwarfs, like Lurch from the Addams Family. I know, I'm dating myself, right? Folks, the guy's like a skyscraper. I mean, a real skyscraper.
And really athletic.
Yeah, no doubt.
So those are the two things that really stood out to me from before the 7-on-7.
All right, I'll give you a couple of mine.
Okay.
Cam Scatterbo, who is about 5'10", 5'11". What are we officially listing him at? Did you see?
I don't even think he's that tall.
I know. He looks like he doesn't belong in the huddle because he's that much shorter than everybody else out there, right? When he gets in the huddle and you see the linemen and the tight ends, and it's like, who's the little guy? He's short, but make no mistake about his size. Size and height are two different things. This guy, his neck is as thick as a tree trunk. His thighs are as thick as a tree trunk. His calves are as thick as the thickest branches you'll find off of a tree.
His arms, too.
Not so bad. The dude is thick. Truly thick. And I need to, when I track him down, to get the pronunciation on his name squared away. I'm going to tell him about that caller we had last week who said Cannonball Cam. He looks like a cannonball.
Yeah.
He really is a human cannonball. When we met him at the Combine, he was just in a T-shirt and a pair of sweats, and he was sitting behind a desk. I didn't get the full impression of his true width and sturdiness that I got standing next to him today. He's sturdy.
Yeah, he's compact.
Big time.
100%. And, as he was standing at the podium just a couple feet away from us, like, it was, pretty clear he's not going to be the tallest guy out on the field, obviously. But I think that's actually going to really benefit him because defenders are going to have a extremely hard time getting leverage on him to try to bring him down because of how low to the ground that he is.
No doubt.
Because he's not that tall, and then when he's kind of like, making moves kind of hunched over a little bit, he's going to be incredibly hard for defenders to get leverage and bring him down. And we saw that, obviously, at Arizona State. And he had a quote during his press conference that I think we already knew that he was going to be a fan favorite.
Oh,
Eventually a fan favorite. But he had one quote where someone basically asked him, I think the question was like, why do you like, playing in such a physical manner?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I like scoring touchdowns. And you know what's even better than scoring touchdowns? Running someone over and then scoring a touchdown. You know what's even better than that? Running one guy over, running another guy over, and then scoring a touchdown. That's why. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, this guy, he's the man, and fans are gonna love him once they actually get to see him start running over guys in the NFL.
No doubt. So that was one thing. And then the other thing that I'll say, physically, Alexander, for a man of his size, and he does not necessarily have girth. We've compared him somewhat to Leonard Williams, the style and the type of player that he is. When you see him in person with the gear on and doing his drills, the agility is off the charts. Did you watch him do when they had to do the bend under the railing?
A little bit, yeah.
So they get all the defensive linemen over there, and Coach Dre Patterson is telling them, okay, this is what you got to do. You're going to come off the ball at the snap, and you're going to have to bend forward and get under the railing to charge into the backfield. That's the drill. So they do it. And like a cat shot out of a cannon, Alexander bends, boom, he's gone. All the other defensive linemen, they're hitting it with their shoulder, they're hitting it with their head, they're hitting it with their back. And Coach Patterson goes, guys, we got to get lower. We got to bend lower. You're not supposed to hit the rail. Alexander's just like he's on a freeway. He just gets off the ball, bends, shoom, gone. Never touches anything. The agility on this guy. I mean, I know you're going to say it's a drill. What does it matter? When you see him do that, and then the other 6 or 7 defensive linemen having a little more difficulty doing it or having to revise their technique and trying to do it, it opens your eye a little bit. And I'm not saying that, he's going to the Pro Bowl. Okay, I'm not saying that. But his agility for his length and his size, pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's obviously bigger weight-wise than who I'm about to mention, but he kind of looked there were flashes out there wearing that 91 where you were like,
don't say it.
I'm just saying, though.
Don't say
the
it.
agility
Don't
that you were just
say
talking
it.
about, the athleticism.
Don't say it.
at times, especially wearing that number,
Well,
just
remember,
showed some flashes
and
of
he's 300 pounds.
of Justin Tuck. Exactly. That's why I said Darius Alexander is obviously, 45 pounds heavier than Justin Tuck was?
Yeah.
But when he's wearing that 91 and, showing that agility that you were just talking about, it reminded me a little bit. Obviously, he's got a long, long, long ways to go before he, comes into the conversation of 91 and Justin Tuck. But from day one, just the agility, the athleticism, you're right. We knew he was, a good athlete and that he's versatile, can play at many different spots along the defense line. But I guess I wasn't fully expecting quite the level of athleticism that he showed on this first day.
All right, one final thought. This will be on Abdul Carter, who also, by the way, is very sturdy and thick.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In fact, I talked to Brandon Short the other day for one of my other programs, and Brandon said to me, I asked about the comparison to Micah Parsons that everybody makes. He said, oh, wait a minute. This guy is bigger. He is bigger and stronger than Micah Parsons. And time will only tell how good he turns out to be in the NFL. But he is thick. He is just extremely sturdy. And again, another guy very impressive. For those of you who want to make a big deal about the story of the numbers, okay, he's wearing 51. He said he feels good in 51 today. He thinks that'll be his number for the season, but this is a good time to tell you. NFL regulations state that players have the right to change their numbers up until 1 week before opening day. Up until then, they can be any number. But if they're going to change it for the season, they've got to do it 1 week before opening day. I've already put that up on Twitter just to make sure you guys were aware of it. Jackson Dart had 6. He said he was trying it out today, was going to see what the pictures and the video look like. He wasn't sure if he was going to keep it. All right. Scadaboo was not committal on the 44.
It did not sound like he planned on keeping it.
Didn't sound like it to me. He didn't rule it out, but it didn't sound like it.
Well, 44, I'm also pretty sure that Flanagan Fowles was given 44, one of the veteran free agent signings, which obviously, as we all know, you can't have two 44s.
And who knows if he'll even make the team.
Yeah.
But so just to let you guys know, yes, it's true that Carter seemed to indicate he's more than likely going to keep 51.
It sounded like he was just like, there's been way too much talk and drama about this number. I don't care about the number. I just want to go out and play football.
Right.
So, I think that's why he kind of made it sound like I'm done with this.
So
let's not stop talking
I'm just
about
trying to save your money, folks. Don't go buying jerseys with the numbers on all of these rookies yet. They've got till 1 week before opening day, as per NFL regulations, to change their numbers. So take your time.
As history has shown us the last couple of years, it's typically around cutdown day, which is obviously the end of training camp, where the guys will be wearing, a certain number at that practice. Then you come back a day or two later, the first practice after cutdown day, and the rookies or whoever are in different numbers. Correct. Which is, again, as you said, a little bit over a week before week 1. So it's going to be a little while till we know for sure what numbers all of these guys are wearing. Obviously, there are some numbers that I kind of hope Scadaboo keeps 44 because obviously Ahmad Bradshaw did a lot of good things in wearing that number for this team, and
looks good as a running back. I'm a traditionalist. I like the old number system that was in place for decades. I'm not too much in for, Thibodeau's wearing 5. I get it. It was important to him. He's an edge rusher. Edge rushers should not be 5. I'm sorry. No, he should not be 5.
Do you not like Burns wearing 0?
Not particularly, no.
I didn't think you would.
Anyway. All right, real quick. Giants Live Part 2 went up this morning. It's up on the website. It's the story of Jackson Dart, the Giants' second first-round draft pick. Quick comment about this one. The detail to which Mike Becton, the producer and the lead videographer who put this project together, physically went through all the edits and so forth and so on. He gives you such a clear storyline as to how the Giants finally got to the deal and to the selection of Jackson Dart. It's a thrill to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I told you yesterday when I first saw it that this second episode was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it was, and that's obviously the first episode with Abdullah was great as well. But
no doubt.
obviously a little less drama around
More drama in this
that
one.
pick.
Right.
This one, the one that came out today, the first 3-4 minutes is Joe in the draft room sweating out whether or not they were going to be able to move up and take the quarterback that everyone in the room seemed to really want.
Could you feel as you're watching it, even though you know what happened, could you feel his agony? I did.
You could see it. There were a few clips of him like with his hand like over his face, sweating it out. Dable too, right next to him. You could tell this is a guy that they really wanted, and they had, it seemed like they had a few different contingency plans for where exactly they were going to try to move up.
Right.
It seemed like Joe and the rest of the front office did have a very good tell of what other teams were going to do. Like, you could, at one point, Joe was talking about, trading up to 20 with Denver to get ahead of Pittsburgh. But then you could, as the episode went on, you could see that Joe was like, no, we don't think they're going to go quarterback. And obviously they were right about that. So it seemed like they really did find the sweet spot for moving up without giving up too much, draft capital in this draft.
Which was also
future.
Key. You could tell that Joe did not want to force it by overpaying.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw those reports that said Joe said to teams, I'm not giving up 65. We can do a deal. I'll give up 99, but I don't want to give up 65.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he found the exact spot. He can move up, keep that 65 pick, get the quarterback they wanted, not trade too much draft capital. So that was really cool to see, just the drama in the draft room. But then after you get through that and the Giants make the selection of Jackson Dart, then the episode goes back to, I think it begins at the Senior Bowl.
Right.
Where the Giants first really got up close and personal with Jackson Dart, and then proceeds to the Combine, and then especially the 30 visit when Jackson was
dynamite.
I mean, again, and I know I spoke about that. We've spoken about this a lot in the months leading up to the draft about how Brian Dable puts these quarterback prospects through the ringer, and how we did see that in last year's Hard Knocks when he put Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May up on the whiteboard and really test them and their knowledge and their ability to pick things up quickly. Well, we saw that again with Jackson Dart. And after watching the episode, you can clearly see why the Giants felt so confident in making that move up to go out and trade for him, because at least from what we saw in that episode, he seemed to pass all of Brian Dable's tests. And Brian Dable has said it, and Jackson actually said it in his media today. Jackson said, I went into it knowing this was going to be a pretty tough test for me. And he said
the toughest.
He said after the whole pre-draft process that what Brian Dable put him and the whole coaching staff put him through in his 30 visit was the toughest test that any team gave him throughout the pre-draft process.
One thing about Coach Dable, if he really likes something, it's hard for him to contain that excitement. You can read him.
Oh,
and you could tell that he's really pumped about something. He loves this kid.
You saw it in the Giants Life episode.
Absolutely.
When they were able to make the move up and get him, you could see how visibly excited and pumped up Brian Dable was.
All right, folks, we will now turn over the program to you. We've taken enough of your time. There was a 70-minute practice session today for the Giants rookies. Giants Life, Jackson Dart was released earlier this morning. I'm sure those are the two topics you're going to want to talk about. 201-939-4513. Paul Dottino, Matt Citak with you, and we will start the program with Kevin in North Carolina. You're first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What's up?
Hey, Paul, I just wanted to say I'm on my way to New York, going to the Knicks game tomorrow. I'm ready for the Garden. It's going to be electric. I can't wait.
Enjoy, and make sure you scream your brains out. Those Celtics need to go down. 3:30 tip-off.
Pearson's giving Paul the stink eye right now.
That's okay. He's entitled to.
So I got two quick questions for you, and then one point. My first question is, rumors had it that the Giants are very interested in signing Gabe Davis, who was just released the other day by the Jaguars. So my question is, if the Giants were to sign Gabe Davis, for example, do you think that kind of moves Jalen Hyatt even further down the depth chart and kind of just, gives Gabe Davis his spot for that deep ball?
What rumor says that that's the case? There are people who have speculated because of the connection to Buffalo that maybe that's a fit. I have not seen any concrete crumb anywhere other than pure speculation that says this could happen.
No, I have not seen any legitimate reports from reputable reporters, either beat reporters or national, that's saying, the Giants have been in contact or have any actual level of interest in him. I did see last night that there was a fake Jordan Schultz tweet going around that made it seem like the Giants agreed to a deal with Gabe Davis. It was from a fake account, though, so obviously not real, despite the fact that the tweet was going viral. Coach Dable was asked about Gabe Davis today, and he was basically like, look, I like the guy. We did some good things together in the years past, but I feel great about the wide receivers that we have on the roster right now. So always looking to add players and help this team get better in any way. I don't think the addition of, if the Gabe Davis were to be signed, I don't think that necessarily would push Jalen Hyatt down the depth chart. I mean, where the season Gabe Davis is coming off of, it's not like he'd be coming in and competing with Malik to be the number one receiver.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Are you still there?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to ask you a simple question, right? For a deal to get done, both parties have to want to make it happen. So let's just say that you're the Giants and you think that Gabe Davis can be an asset to your wide receiver room. Well, he's going to be behind Neighbors, he's going to be behind Slayton, and he's going to be behind Robinson. So at best, he's the fourth receiver on the depth chart. At best, right? And that assumes that he would maybe beat out Hyatt. We don't know. That would be a competition. Fourth, do you think Gabe Davis is anxious to come into a situation knowing that at best he's going to be the fourth receiver on the depth chart? Might he not be interested, maybe more interested in signing with a team where he might be one of the top three receivers?
No, I definitely get. I see your point there, Paul. But if you look at that Jaguars contract, he was released by the Jaguars. So even if he were to sign with the Giants, the Jaguars are going to still be paying him.
That's not the issue. I'm not talking about economy here. I'm talking about depth chart. If you're Gabe Davis and you've established yourself as an NFL player,
he would be the number one guy. But just that having that connection with Dayball and Shane
again,
being drafted there in Buffalo.
I think guys who have been in this league for a while, they value playing time more than relationships sometimes.
Yeah, I mean we literally saw a very similar situation a year ago when Russell Wilson was first released from the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos were still paying him all that money. He could sign with any team for the minimum. And, he came in here for a visit. We all know that happened. But when he was told, Daniel Jones is going to be the starter this year, he went and signed with somewhere else where he knew he would be, the starter or in the running to be the starting quarterback because, he knew I have to go out and prove myself in order to get the next contract.
Kevin,
so Gabe Davis would be in the same sort of boat.
It's possible that something happens with him, but right now the Giants don't have cap room for it. They'd have to create it, which they could. We've already explained how you can finagle deals. So, yes, it could happen, but I would just suggest that I'm not sure it's as perfect a fit as some people want to believe. It could happen, but I don't think it's on the burner right now. I have no evidence that indicates that it is. Thanks for the call.
And then my next question, real quick, and then my final point, and then get off the air here. My next question is, with Shane Bowen, he likes to play a lot of zone defense, and now with the additions that we've gotten into the secondary, with Paulson and Debo, for example, he's a very, press man-to-man corner. Do you think we'll kind of see, a more man-to-man scheme this year on the Giants defense, especially if you can get that extra rusher in there, with Carter or Thibodeau, all five of those guys on the field? Do you think we'll kind of see more, man-to-man coverage as opposed to, a lot of a heavy zone scheme that he traditionally has, played throughout, his career as a coach or as a defensive coordinator?
Call us back in April and in August. Ask that question in August. Until they get out on the field at training camp, there's no way to tell what Shane Bowen's doing. In fact, it was just a couple of days ago after they got Abdul Carter in the draft. A couple of days ago, Dable was asked when the guys came in and reported, how do you think, some of these pieces are going to be used? And he goes, Shane Bowen's upstairs right now, working on how to use guys and trying to figure out game plans and trying to figure out schemes. This is still a work in progress. So your question's valid, but it will be more valid a few months down the road.
Yeah, the Giants have
Kevin.
A lot of talented pieces, both on the front seven now and in the secondary. And Coach Dable has made it very clear. It's going to be up to Shane Bowen to figure out how to best utilize all of these guys. And that's where they're playing and, sort of the scheme that they're playing on a play-to-play basis. So I agree. It's going to, not something that we're going to know for a couple more months.
No, not at all. James in Georgia, you're next on BBKL. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hi.
How you doing, James?
I like the Giants life stuff that was going on. Sorry for the stutter.
No, not at all. We're glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah. So one part I did get a glimpse of night one. They were watching the Knicks playoff game in the background. I don't know if you've seen the camera pan over it, but you can see
I did notice that as well.
In the background.
There's a lot of. I'll say there's a lot of screens in that room. They can afford to put one little one on the Knicks game in the corner.
And quite a few Knicks fans in this building, by the way.
All right. So again, with they showed Jackson Dart on the whiteboard and everything.
Yes.
Part of what I was been talking about is how I think even going back to the last year when they put Jaden Daniels on the whiteboard, and one red flag that stood out to me, obviously it's clearly not a red flag, he can ball. He didn't really recite back, like Dable would give him some instruction, they would move on, and then he came back and was like, now recite back that play I told you earlier, and he recited it back wrong 2 times, and Dable was like, that's all right. I didn't see that from Jackson Dart, especially like when he threw the rag at him after he told him to turn around and drew up a new play, and he, gave the right answer right off the top.
Now, James, you are right about that, but Jackson Dart, not even that, but Jackson Dart actually spoke about this during his media today.
Yeah.
You got to keep in mind, last year when Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, all those guys were going through that process, they didn't really know what to expect going into that meeting with Coach Dable and the rest of the offense and coaching staff. Jackson Dart said today, he's like, going into my visit with the Giants, I had seen those clips from Hard Knocks. I kind of knew what to expect from Coach Dable and the other coaches. So I hear your point, but I just want to, make it clear that, like, Jackson Dart did have a little bit of a heads up kind of what to expect, while Jaden Daniels did not.
I consider that a plus because it means he saw the evidence and prepared himself
100%,
appropriately.
100%.
Which is actually in itself a check mark for him.
Yeah.
All right, which is probably what dropped down another quarterback that we ended up not drafting, because he didn't have a good process. But we're not going to talk about people that's not on our team.
Right.
Exactly.
So I know a lot of people also call about our wide receiver depth and all that stuff, and y'all say there's nobody coming up off the street that's going to walk in here and help this team immensely. I definitely believe, even if you bring in somebody, I don't think they're going to move the needle that much. And just to say, how much of a good job these guys are doing. If y'all can look up one thing for me, what is the parameters, or not parameters, like the numbers that a number 2 wide receiver is putting up? Because, Slayton's getting paid like a number 3 wide receiver, but we need him to put up production as a number 2. Or is Wandale our true number 2 wide receiver playing out of the slot, production-wise? You know what I'm saying? If y'all can, look at
how would you define your number 2 receiver? Is your number 2 receiver the guy who's second in the room in catches? Is he second in the room in yardage, receiving yardage? Is he second in the room in touchdown grabs? That can be a different definition.
For sure. I kind of look at because they're just such different styles of wide receivers, Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. It's sort of like a 2A and 2B, and whatever one you want to put as 2A.
It's a matchup deal.
Yeah. I don't really think that one of them is necessarily the bona fide number 2 receiver. It's not like some other teams around the league where they're like, you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, or now Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. It's not a situation like that.
And I think based off previous conversations y'all were having, like that, yes, that's true, and that everybody's like, we don't have a backup slot, but it's like you can put Tracy, who has wide receiver experience, you can motion him to the slot. You can put however you want to attack that for that play. You can put your big wide receiver, your tight end. We can manufacture a second slot receiver.
Yeah, the traditional slot, which is the Smurf type receiver, is not today's slot. Today's slot can be three different things, right? The jumbo slot, it can be your standard traditional slot, or it can be your flex tight end. It's a much more wider scope than it used to be.
And I think we got all those people on the roster already. And my last point, because I haven't called in a while, and y'all were talking about who would probably make an appearance quicker out of the draft choices a couple of days ago.
To start a game.
Right. And I think that the way, y'all said this first rookie minicamp went or whatnot, that the answer to that question is more like, who will get who will get playing time first, right? And you can probably look at if they go with a heavy line, you'll get the extra tight end in there, or you can get Bo in there as the pulling guard or pulling tackle. You know what I mean? If they just have to scheme a way to let's get the rookie out there. I don't think any of these guys are just gonna get handed a job. But if it were my guess, I would probably say either Scatterbo or Fedoni, because, like you said, they're probably just going to give them a series, just to spell the other two running backs. They give Scatterbo the ball in the third quarter or something. This might happen week one.
Okay. So, thank you, James. Appreciate the call as always. He's one of our regulars.
Thanks, James.
Jesse is next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, fellas. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We do.
How you doing, Jesse?
What a pleasure. Well, great show. First off, great show. I appreciate you guys so much.
Thanks for calling.
You guys make life fun. So I wanted to jump back yesterday. You guys were talking about Jackson Dart and about people might want to rush him in a little bit quicker than they want. I kind of just want to say I feel the opposite as a fan. I've seen what Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Jordan Love. I kind of like that, where we sit him maybe even 2 years. We got Jameis on a 2-year contract. So I know people were trying to rush him. I wanted your take on where's like the maximum timeline where you guys are getting a little bit worried why they're sitting him for so long. And shout out Wilson from Roxbury. I'll take this off the air. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Jesse.
Okay, Jesse.
Well, for starters, I don't think you can say that there's a maximum amount of time you can sit, because I've said this many times for months before the draft. I've said it since we drafted Jackson Dart. An ideal scenario for the Giants this offseason, this season, Jackson Dart doesn't play at all.
Not
because
one snap.
Because Russell Wilson is playing great football and the Giants are winning games and they're in the playoff hunt, make the playoffs. That is the ideal scenario. So in an ideal world, he doesn't see a single snap, or maybe just in mop-up duty at the end of a game in a blowout win. That, in an ideal world, is the only time he sees the field. How realistic that is remains to be seen. Obviously, we got to wait until the games start and they actually start playing and, winning or losing games. But I am fully under the belief that the longer you can sit your rookie quarterback and have him learn from the veterans, the better. Obviously, if the season is not going the way that you'd hope, there's only so long that you could sit the guy without being like, all right, we gotta see what we have here.
Right.
But again, in an ideal world, he doesn't play at all this year.
I tend to believe that 26 would be fine, but ultimately it comes down to his own progress. Brian Daboll has been charged with developing this young rookie. And so it's going to be on Brian Daboll and Shea Tierney and Mike Kafka, all of them, to be honest. All of them are going to have to add the ingredients into this broth and stir that sucker on top of the stove. And when they think he's ready, that's when they start to contemplate the decision as to, when do we need to get him in? You don't even give that a second of thought until they believe he is ready. Because to put him in prematurely is a disservice to him, and it's a disservice to this organization. In a perfect world, he redshirts for a season, and perhaps next season you start talking about, hey, what game, or maybe even opening day, who knows? that he gets to be a starter. You don't really want to have any preconceived notions here. What you'd rather do is let his progress dictate your moves.
100%. That is by far and away the most important thing. Like that question kind of made me think back. Obviously, different situation, but going back to 2017, Davis Webb's rookie year. Granted, he was a third-round pick. You didn't trade up into the first round to take him. But I remember, this was before I was working here, so I was a fan, like all of you. I remember all year seeing other fans be like, got to put Davis Webb in, we got to put him in, and the coaching staff did not put him in the entire season. Well, that's because clearly the coaching staff who gets to see him on a daily basis did not believe that he was ready to go in.
Do you remember when they put Kyle Lauletta in a game down in Washington and he played really, really badly?
Yep.
And Coach got into the press conference afterwards, and the first thing he said was, well, you guys wanted to see him.
Yeah.
And basically what he was trying to say is, I wasn't putting him in because I didn't think he was ready. And you just saw how he was in over his head today in this game. You don't want that for Jackson Dart.
No.
Under any circumstances.
You want to make sure that when he goes out there in an actual regular season game for the first time, that he is fully ready to go in every sort of way. Mentally, physically, like in every single way you can think about it, he needs to be ready. Otherwise, you're just doing both him and your franchise a disservice when you rush your quarterback. Now, that's not to say that a rookie
and that
can't...
was Shermer, by the way, not Dable. Just I want to make clear when I say coach. I don't want you to think it was Dable.
Kyle Lauletta was long gone before Dable was here. But
yes.
I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. But I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that.
I remember. I want to make it clear that while I think we both agree that the longer your rookie quarterback can sit, the better, that does not mean that a rookie quarterback cannot go in and have immediate success. I mean, we see it every year with like at least one guy that goes out there and balls out as a rookie. We saw it last year with Jaden Daniels.
It can happen.
Even, not even top of the first round picks. I mean, I go back to Dak Prescott's rookie year. Obviously, it was an injury that led to him going in so quickly, but he played well right away, and he never gave the job back to, was it Tony Romo? Never gave the job back to him.
That's right.
So that's what we're saying does not mean that you can't go out there as a rookie and have success right away. But because the Giants also went out and signed Jameis Winston, you think that it would have to be, 2 injuries at the quarterback position to Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston before Jackson Dart gets out there early in the season. Later on in the season, depending on how the season's going, that, could be another story. But early on, you'd have to think that there would have to be several injuries before he's going to get thrown into the actual regular season action.
I mean, do I need to even cite the GOAT? Tom Brady sat his first season. Got in for a few snaps. That was it. It was the second season when Bledsoe got hurt in the Jets game that Brady then came in and stole the job.
Yeah, 6th round pick. And it was as you know, it was a lot different 20-plus years ago.
No doubt.
The pressure on the rookie court to get the rookie quarterback in right away wasn't there.
The pressure comes from the outside more than
that
anything
is true.
else.
No, that's definitely true.
And that's one thing that Joe Shane's really good at. He shuts down outside noise.
And Brian Dable.
Both.
Brian
Thank
Dable
goodness for
does
that.
not care, does not give a hoot about what is being said outside this building.
It's truly one of the best qualities that these guys have.
Yeah.
They put those blinders on, and they need to. Jason in New Haven, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, Paul and Matt, how you guys doing?
Hi.
Good. How are you,
Good
Jason?
to talk to you.
Good to talk to you guys, too. I'll try to make it quick because I know you're probably pressed on time. I have 2 points and then a fun little question at the end. So either you can respond after I get over or you're in between, whatever you guys want to do. The first thing with Abdul, of course, we all like to pick. And one thing that caught my attention when I watched the Giants Life episodes, which both of them were knock out of the park, really good episodes. So you guys, again, knock it out the park with these shows you guys are putting on. So
cool.
Always kudos to you guys. One thing, and I mentioned it before, maybe Paul, maybe you won't remember. I don't think Matt was on the call when I talked to you at the time, but I think with Abdul, to me, he's somewhat of a, and I hate to use this word, but to me, he is more of a positionless defender. And I don't want to say positionless because I hate that term. I'll say more of a chess piece on the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
His first 2 years at Penn State, he played middle linebacker. Then he moved to edge his last year, which the tape, shows that he's really good at.
Yes.
So I think that him being able to kind of play and maneuver within that front seven, whether it be the edge, and I'm not asking you guys to, tell me what he might play in Bowles' system. I'm not asking you guys that because they haven't been on the field yet.
Right.
But in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe on a 3rd and long, he's going to line up at the edge a lot. But I wouldn't be surprised if he plays on that second level, right? And it's him and Okereke. You got Tibbs and Burns on the edge.
Absolutely.
And, he has so much versatility that and he had good tape at middle linebacker. So, I mean, the pick is just a knockout of the park. It'll be interesting to see what Bowen does with him. And like I said, I'm not asking you guys to kind of tell me what you think he'll play. Of course, he'll play edge, but I can really see some parts of his game where you might put him at a second level with Okereke or McFadden. You might spy him against the likes of Hurts and Jaden.
Jason,
and
there's
Dak
the third
and all those
word,
guys.
spy. I just talked to Brandon Short, former Giants and Penn State linebacker, just the other night about this. And he said, yes, right now he's primarily an edge rusher, but there's no reason why you could not play him off the ball or as a spy, because they even did some of that on some snaps apparently last year at Penn State.
Right.
He told me that I think 3 or 4 of Carter's sacks last year came as a spy, not as an edge rusher. And then he mentioned to me that I think 2 of his picks, I don't know how many Abdul Carter interceptions does he have for his college career. Let me see if I can just look that up real quick. Because he said to me he thought that he had 2 interceptions while playing off-ball linebacker.
I remember one. I remember one.
He's got one, so then maybe one was nullified by a penalty or something. But Brandon was very, very insistent that you don't just put this guy in one spot and put him in a box. He's got too much to offer.
Right. So, so great. And one more thing about Abdul before I get to the 2 questions. Let's say even on a 3rd and long, let's say you have Tibbs and Burns and Golston and Dexter. Maybe you put him over the center. Could you imagine the twist and the stunts you could play with those 5? I mean, it's just...
I know, Jason. You go with that amoeba defense where you don't even... Maybe Dexter's the only one with his hand on the ground.
Right.
And the amoeba defense is everybody standing up, kind of hoovering around and making that quarterback go nuts.
Right. So, next 2 questions, and I'll make it quick, and either Paul or Matt can answer, then I have a fun question for you, too. The undrafted, I'm sure we can speak about them now. 3 guys, and either you can answer it or I'll hear it off the air. 3 guys that I'm kind of interested in. I mentioned one a few maybe last week when I talked to, maybe it was you, Paul and Matt, but I mentioned Juice Wells from Ole Miss. 2 guys that caught my attention was the running back, Rashawn Baker, I believe his name is.
Yep.
Who has some really interesting traits. Apparently he's around 225, 230. He's a pretty big back. And then Makari Page. And then my fun question, I'll listen off the air. Those 3, I wanted to see maybe if you saw anything from those 3. I know it's hard to say with no pads, but maybe just from an athleticism point, their size. And then the second question, fun question, Matt and Paul. Everybody's talking about the receiver room. I personally think I'm not saying we have a top 5 receiving room, but I'm higher on Slayton than most. I think he's a really good NFL receiver. And, of course, Neighbors, no need to go into that. And then we have Wandell. Hyatt Hyatt hopefully shows a little bit more going into his 3rd year. And then with Fedone, you can move him into the slot. Theo, there's different ways. But if I ask you 2, and I'm not going to ask you guys to compare because one had a way better career than the other. But if you could take one receiver from yesteryears, fellas, and put it on this team, I'm going to ask you 2. Who would you pick? And I'm going to give you 2 names. Both were Giants. Not saying who had a better career because all 3 of us would agree, but for this team, right, if somebody said, Matt and Paul, you have a choice of either receiver on this 2025 team, who would you take? And I'm going to put two names out there. Amani Toomer, prime Amani Toomer, and prime Steve Smith before he left for Philly.
Plexico Burris. End of question.
I was waiting
Plexico
for the name
Burris.
Plexico to come. I thought Jason was going to say it.
Well,
I knew Paul was going to say it one way or the other.
I didn't want to say Plexico because that would be too easy. But because Neighbors is the one. But if I could just pick those, I wanted to make it a little harder.
Toomer.
I
would take Toomer over Smith.
Or prime Steve Smith, and I'll take it off there.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, between those two, I think it's
got to be Toomer.
Pretty easy, Amani Toomer. I mean, Steve Smith, that goes nothing against him. He was great for the Giants, played a big role in the Super Bowl, but he really had one great season. Outside of that,
he blew out his knee.
Well, but I'm saying even like before that, it's not like he was good, but it was that one 2009 year where he set the reception record, had over 1,000 yards, had over 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. Like he was fantastic that year. Amani Toomer did it year in and year out for
Most
his entire
prolific receiver in team history.
entire career.
Yes.
So for me, that one is pretty easy. But I agree with you. I'd rather Plexico.
All right. The three guys you talked about, Juice Wells, the wide receiver. Even Brian Dable mentioned the fact that he and McIntyre, both from Ole Miss, it does kind of help with Jackson Dart's transition. It gives him a familiar face that he can work with. He did say Wells is a good player, and obviously Dart has thrown a lot of passes to him.
Yeah, he did make it clear. Juice Wells, Antoine Wells, he's not here just because of Jackson Dart.
No.
He's here because of his own merit.
He's a good player.
And his own accomplishments, what he was able to do. But the fact that he has that familiarity with Jackson Dart obviously is like an added bonus.
Rashawn Baker, 6 feet, 225 out of Elon. Yes, he is a large man. He's one of those power backs that, I always want to have one of those in the room. They kind of drafted one, so I don't know if there's room for another one. Maybe on the practice squad, who knows? But yes, that's who you're talking about. He is a power back. And also Makari Page, 6'4", 208 out of the University of Michigan. I did not notice anything special that he did today while we were out there.
Me neither. No, there was one receiver, though, that was not just mentioned, who just from a size perspective stood out. And that was Daquan Felton, the wide receiver. He, similar to what we were saying before about Fedoni kind of sticking out in terms of his size, Felton kind of, looked like a skyscraper compared to everyone else out there. He's listed, I believe, at 6'4".
6'5", 216.
6'5".
Out of Virginia Tech.
I was going to say, if you told me he was 6'5", I would fully believe you. He looked massive out there.
Yeah.
Just from a pure size perspective.
All right, folks, let's go back to the phone lines. Cliff in New York, you're next on the program. Hello. And we can probably take one more after this, John, if we can squeeze them in. Go ahead.
Okay. Just before you started taking calls, you said somebody got released this morning. Who was that?
Yesterday, Casey Rogers was released.
Yesterday, Casey Rogers, and then today, Lil Jordan Humphrey was released in order to make room for all of these rookie signings.
And Humphrey was what?
From Denver. He was a receiver.
He was the receiver.
He was a free agent.
So
that was
Casey
signed.
Rogers. Okay. I'm still trying to catch up on the original round of free agency signings before the draft with the big fellas. Last time I brought this up, you told me that Ledbetter would be the guy that would be considered an upgrade over what we had to give Dexter Lawrence a breather. Is that right?
Well, to be honest with you, they've still got to figure that out. He is a big guy. No question. He's a big guy, and he would be a backup nose. But that competition along the defensive front's open.
Yeah, the Giants went out and also signed the first day of free agency Roy Robertson Harris, who's another big interior defensive lineman, a veteran that's been around the league for a long time. Chauncey Golston obviously has a lot of versatility, but
he's not a backup nose, though.
No, he's not a backup nose, but he's definitely going to get snaps on the interior of the defensive line. Some snaps.
Well,
they're going to use him all over.
Harris was one of the guys I didn't grasp. I just didn't get who he was,
Yeah, he's just a solid nose. He's a solid veteran that's been around the league for what, like a decade now, close to a decade.
Yeah,
I think I want to say he's 30, 31 in that range.
It's to be honest with you, Cliff, it's really kind of premature until we actually see guys, even in the veteran minicamp, which is coming up in a few weeks. At least until then, it's kind of a crapshoot. It's like throwing mud against the wall in terms of the depth chart. They tried to get a lot of bodies in here, and they're going to have to sort it out, for themselves via competition.
Okay, so we're confident that they addressed it as a need for an upgrade from what we had.
We think so. Heck, Jordan Riley is still here. As inconsistent.
That's what I meant. I'm thinking of him and DJ Davidson.
As inconsistent. Well, Davidson's not so much a backup nose, but Riley is. And he was inconsistent, but I know that Andre Patterson really likes that young guy. Now, can he develop more consistency in his third pro season? Maybe he can. Maybe Riley does wind up being a part of that rotation and holds off the challenge.
Also, for the record, Roy Robertson-Harris has some experience playing in the nose. Definitely not as much as some of the other positions on the interior defensive line, but he does have some experience playing there.
And there could be times in like the sub package where they may not go with a true nose on some snaps. If Dexter needs a few moments rest, they may wind up going with a smaller front because they just want to get penetration.
The NASCAR package.
Well, I don't want to steal that because that was Spags's.
I know.
You don't want to do that anymore.
Oh, yeah. Now, the big question for me was when Shane Bowen arrived, they said, he was big on having a very stout front four. When he was in Tennessee, he had the All-Pro Simmons, and I think there was a guy next to him there who was pretty darn good. And so that's why I was so, hot to get Mason Graham because he seemed to be the best fit for Shane Bowen, besides being a spectacular player apparently, and we can disband our fan club for him now, I guess. But do you think that was addressed? Is he scrambling? Are we going to be some kind of a
Darius Alexander is going to fight very hard to get a ton of reps at the 3 tech. Don't be disappointed, Cliff. I love Mason Graham, and so does he. But Darius Alexander is going to be really good and quickly.
Darius Alexander was one of the guys that we both said we would want if the Giants, did not get Mason Graham in the first round, which we knew was not likely going into the draft. He was one of the guys we were talking about. We would love to spend one of those day 2 picks, whether it's 34, 65, or 99. We would love to see the Giants take him with one of those.
Very much so.
Now, did we get anybody who would be ahead of him for him to focus on beating out for that spot?
Nacho's still here.
Well, what about
Nacho was the starting 3 technique last year. Right now, that's his job at the moment, pending competition.
Okay. Well, if you want to squeeze in somebody else, I'll come back another time for the offense.
All right. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you, Cliff.
Did you? Oh, John, I thought we had somebody else on the line. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, my bad. Well, we could have actually taken Cliff's offensive competition. I feel bad, Cliff. I'm sorry. 201-939-4513. Couple more minutes to go. Go ahead.
Just about, Cliff's sort of questioning. The Giants went out and addressed the interior defensive line, I feel like, in a big way this offseason.
They got a lot of guys now to compete.
So I think it was very clear that last year when Dexter Lawrence came off the field for a breather, because obviously a man that size, you can't expect him to play 100% of the snaps, the defensive line struggled. It's not
no doubt.
I'm taking anyone by surprise by saying that. And it was clear going into this offseason that Joe Shane, the front office, the coaching staff wanted to make sure that did not happen again this year. That when Dexter Lawrence needs to come off for a breather, they will be A-okay. Obviously, the guy that's going to go in for him is not the same level as Dexter Lawrence. There's only one Dexter Lawrence. But it's not going to be a big, sort of step down with the guys that were brought in. They brought in a lot of different guys that can play all over. I think we're going to see a lot of creativity from Shane Bowen in those situations when Dexter Lawrence is off the field. As you said, the Giants now have a lot of guys that can line up all over the place. And I think confusing the opposing offenses and the opposing offensive lines is going to be a big factor when Dexter Lawrence comes off the field this season.
They've got more personnel now to show many more looks than they had last year, Matt, and that's a big deal.
It's going to be tough to prepare for this defense.
I think so, too. 201-939-4513. Oh, is that
3:30.
I was gonna. All right.
We don't have any calls.
I was gonna. Yeah, there is one on line 3. I was gonna take one more, but we'll call it a day. I'm just so giddy. I just want to talk about Giants football for the next 25 hours, or at least until the Knicks beat the Celtics in Game 3. All right, folks. Hey, just as a reminder, we do want to let you know, because after all, the season is going to be upon us before you know it. I mean, it could come up really, really quickly. Giant season ticket packages are available. And if I could only find the promo, wherever the heck it is, well, you know what?
You can do it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I don't know where it is. All right. Hey, here it is. Catch all the Giants action at MetLife Stadium with an exciting home schedule on the horizon. With a membership, you can stay connected to the team all year round, not just on game days, with exclusive member access and benefits. To learn more about a New York Giants season ticket membership, visit giants.com/tickets. Folks, ton of coverage, photos, copy, videos, plus Giants Life Part 2, Jackson Dart version. It's all up there on the website today. We invite you to take a look at it.
We've had a lot of content go up on the site today.
It has been a busy one.
And there's more to come. So keep on checking. I know we've sent a lot of push notifications today. I apologize for that, but it's all big news. There's a lot to announce today.
Well, it's good stuff to digest.
It's all good stuff.
Before we watch the Knicks win tomorrow.
We got 24 hours until
Exactly.
that.
We got a lot of time for that. 24 hours till tip-off. So a lot of time for you to enjoy that. You know, put a little cheese and sauce on the pasta. Enjoy the meal. Practice will resume tomorrow, so there'll be coverage on Giants.com and, of course, all of our Twitter pages from practice tomorrow. And then we'll be back with Big Blue Kickoff Live at our regular time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Monday here on Giants.com. From Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you next time.